Welcome to the swamp. I said I was seeing a theme in my last video about sea-based survival games. Looks like I was right. We have another Castaway survival game. Only this time, some things are better and some are worse. As someone who lives near and has seen the Caribbean, I am familiar with this type of setting, and I was interested in seeing a more realistic survival game. So here is my take on Stranded Deep. My name is Excalligator. I rate games based on many categories that I would fit into most survival games based on a 1 to 5 system. If a category does not apply, it will not affect the game's overall score. Now let us get started. So I played this game back in 2016, 2018, I don't quite remember. But I replayed it recently for this review. I have over 30 hours total, with around 12 hours being put into this review. At the time I first played it, there was no story mode or way to finish the game. Since then, more creatures, boss battles, and even a story mode has been added, so I played this game fresh to experience the new systems. This game does not require a powerful PC, but it is recommended for a more middle-of-the-road one. Stranded Deep is the game I wish I had the polish of Raft. While I vastly enjoyed Raft, I wanted to have more types of creatures, large reefs, being able to settle on an island, build a house. Stranded Deep has all of that, but it sucks. This game, I have noticed, from my last time playing, has some changes, from the menu being changed, to game modes, even a lot of additional items and creatures. But the quality is still terrible, and I'll rant about that in the bugs section of this review. Since I've last played, they've added a female character you can choose from to play, but other than that, you still can't create your own character. This game is primarily a first-person game, but you do have the option to play in third person. Though, since you can't choose to create your own character, I won't be rating this section. You choose your server type, character, and enter. You start off with a cutscene of your character being in a plane. Something goes wrong and your plane crashes. So I'll give the game that the cutscene, while not overly dramatic, still gets the butterflies to rumble in your stomach. After all, the experience of a plane crashing is a scary thing to think about. As you get out and get to your raft, you load into the world. The world itself is randomly generated, not procedural. With the exception of 4 areas, every island is randomly chosen from a pool of handmade islands that will be used to populate your world. You now have to survive in this world. You have the option of a tutorial. The tutorial is pretty trash. It will say, do this, but not really tell you how to do it. Even something as simple as making a coconut flask is not really told how to make it. It is in a certain tab in the crafting menu, but it took me around 10 minutes to figure out that I can change the tabs, since the layout didn't make it as noticeable at first. There is no HUD at all. All of your stats are on your character's watch, which you can look at by pressing the F on the keyboard. Sometimes you can physically see the issues with your character. When they are poisoned, you will see a rash on your arm. When your leg is broken, you will limp, and you will take damage since you are hurting yourself more by walking on the broken leg. That is something I like. Not all games do this, and having less HUD and less menus are better. Due to the lackluster tutorial, I am dropping the intro to a 3 out of 5. The cutscene, while it does get you to go like, oh shit, is not really enough to get you to jump out of your seat in amazement. Plus, I don't think a cutscene could carry gameplay. Otherwise, World of Warcraft would be a good game. And we all know it's not. The majority of the resources in the game are non-respawnable, which means you have to travel island to island in order to gather more materials. Exploring shipwrecks will also be beneficial for finding higher grade materials like engines, flashlights, duct tape. The only things that will respawn would be fiber plants, but trees, herbs, rocks, and debris won't respawn at all. Some of the smaller creatures will, but only after a week in-game. There is one area in the map that serves as the story island, kind of like in Raft. The other islands themselves are handmade but are randomized on which will be in your generated world. Though you can also create your own island to add to your world, even edit the world to add, remove, and move islands. I would say the exploration in this game is needed, and is even dangerous, given that there are creatures that want to attack you and your raft. So I will rate this a 4 out of 5. The survival in this game is a real bitch. It's more akin to games like Green Hell, where there are a ton of environmental hazards, a lot of status effects that will not go away unless you make a cure, and a ton of creatures who want to eat you. At the start of the game, water is the hardest thing to find, as eating too much coconut milk and meat could result in an upset stomach, which will drastically lower your water levels. One thing that is usually annoying in other games but a benefit in this game is that items do not despawn when you drop them. The only things that despawn are animals after you skin them, but the animal itself will stay in the world until you do so. This means you can pile up all of your resources you scrounge up. I like to make organized piles of all of my stuff. This was a popular thing to do back in a couple years ago, so an update made it so you can actually make piles of the items you want to make to look a bit nicer. Going back a bit, when animals don't despawn, they don't go bad either. Uncooked meat will spoil, but if you never harvest the animal, the meat won't go bad. You can keep a pile of fish on hand until you are ready to cook and eat, or you can just smoke the meat, which will get rid of the spoil timer too. Stepping on certain things in the world, such as the purple starfish, urchins, lionfish, and snakes, will result in poison. Falling will result in a broken leg. Well, you get the point. Your health will not regenerate unless your food and water are full, which at the start of the game is hard to get, though once you get a water harvesting station and a smoker for your fire, it's considerably easier to stay fed and hydrated. The good thing is that when you do have a status ailment or are starving or dehydrated, it's not an instant death. In other games, your health would just drop quickly. Here, it's a slow burn, so you will have plenty of time to heal yourself. I went a few days with a poison debuff and only lost a few bars of health. Though one thing I will mention, if you don't farm and make your own herbs, your world will eventually run out. Then you will be screwed, and won't be able to heal anymore, which I think is an oversight by the devs. The point of the game is to get out and not gallivant for months in game. But if people want to have a chill experience and just build, explore, craft, and roleplay, without a way to get certain resources regardless of farming, you will eventually run out, and I think that is a major flaw in this type of gameplay decision. Overall, the survival, while it has a lot of issues, I think it's also in-depth, and certainly a hardcore experience if you can get around the bugs and can get a decent foothold. So I will rate this portion a 4 out of 5. Starting with the building in this game, it's pretty useless and annoying. While you can craft a home, it's a waste of resources, especially when trees and other resources are limited in this world. If you wish to build a home anyway, it's got a decent enough selection of items to build with, though it's more of a roleplay aspect and not much for the survival. You can play the entire game with no building. When it comes to the crafting, originally when I played this game, you could craft anything you wanted as long as you had the resources for it. In this newer version, there are now crafting and survival levels, and that means there are some things you cannot craft unless you are the proper level. I don't really like this change. If I have the resources, I should be able to make it. Though when it comes to progression, making it so you have to craft something to make the next tiered item first before you get to the next tier is typically how I like it. Think of it like Conan Exiles. If you start off at level 60, you can't really get to steel right away. You have to start off with iron, and then you get to steel eventually by crafting the various resources to make the stations in order to even craft steel. That's how I like it, since you are only gated by the grind you put into the game, rather than levels. Besides that, there are a lot more items than last time I played, also changes to how some of the items work. A little bit of extra trivia, there used to be a bucket you could craft that had actual physics to them. You could drop the bucket into the ocean and it would fill with salt water. If you tipped them over, the water would spill. You could leave them out and gather rainwater too. But unfortunately, that item is long gone. Physics are still in the game, as you can pick up items and move them around like in Skyrim, but you don't have any rain gathering items anymore. You basically have to distill for water. Speaking of water, farms can utilize rainwater. Farming is mandatory if you don't wish to run out of herbs or fruit in this game. Meat-based food will respawn, but plant-based won't. You also cannot finish the game unless you have farming, because you will need to farm potatoes in order to make fuel to get out of the Caribbean. So farming is a requirement. Making the patch and then planting will mean you can regrow the item after a few days. Also, you really don't have to maintain them. You do have to water them, but it rains so often I've never really had to manually water them. I would say overall, with the building being useless, farming being mandatory yet easy, and crafting being a bit of a hit or miss with the gating, also with the value of the items, I'm unfortunately going to have to rate this a 2 out of 5. PvE in this game, I'll relate to the beasts of the world. There's not much depth to it. You strike and do damage. Big sharp stick hurts. I will say that the fact that when you land on an island with aggressive creatures, they all rush you the moment you step foot, and it's really annoying. I stepped foot on an island where I got chased by several large crabs and a boar at the same time, which was my only death so far in this run. Sharks are a real pain in the ass too, but that's not really a bad thing in terms of gameplay. They are done quite well compared to the boars. In the game Raft, there is only one shark and he always steers near your raft. In this game, sharks spawn in the various island nodes and will stay in the node, but within that node, they have free reign to swim wherever they feel like. It's always a good idea to check the node you are on for what shark is around and how many first before you dive. While you can wait for them to leave the area to dive down into the water, knowing what kind of shark it is very beneficial. Some sharks react to you differently. Tiger sharks, for example, will attack you but will first tease you. They like to bluff, come right for you, and then veer away. Then when you least expect it, they'll bite. And at times, when they are really cocky, they'll actually grab and drag you down into the water. Then you have other sharks that don't even bother with the teeth, and they'll go straight for you. And they won't even buy you dinner first. So the sharks of this game are done very well, and add a good sense of danger to the water. You know, besides the sea snakes, lionfish, and urchins. Those are more of environmental dangers. They don't strike at you, but they will poison you if you touch them. You do also have to pay attention to the time of day and weather. When it's midday and the sky is clear, the water is as clear as the Florida Keys. But then when the weather kicks in or it's nighttime, you can't see anything in the water, and it will lead to more of a chance of you running into something you don't want to. Though I will tell you, the music changes to be more ominous when there is a shark nearby, so you will have an audio cue to hide or get the fuck out. Here is a little bit of that music now. There are also 3 boss battles in this game. They don't really have any mechanics behind them, other than the fact that they can and will knock you off your raft. Other than that, you jump back to your raft and you keep firing with whatever ranged weapon you can make until they die. So the PvE overall is pretty lackluster, stab with pointy end and do damage. Even with the boss battles, and the land animals are buggy as hell, so this is gonna be a 2 out of 5. This game is not a PvP game, and unfortunately I didn't really try out the multiplayer, so I don't know if there is friendly fire or not. Either way, I will not rate this portion. You are really not given any story of this game, as it's not a narrative-driven game, therefore this section will not be rated. The story as it's presented to you is that you are crash-landed and need to escape. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a generic 3 out of 5 score. In some instances, like the movie Castaway or even Lord of the Flies, it can be an endearing story of survival, but in other cases it can be dull, as it's all something we've seen before already. The endgame of Stranded Deep is lackluster, pointless to play unless you want to do challenges or roleplay. If you are driven by goals, once you finish the game, there's not really much left to do. And when you gather enough resources in any competent way to keep your food and water replenished, the challenge is slowly removed from it. So, as usual with games like this, I'm gonna be rating it a 2 out of 5. Short and sweet. No mods, no score. So here's a bit of a thing. This game to many is considered dead. It's not quite dead, but not very active either. Updates come every several months, maybe. And it's usually hotfixes. You will see very, very few content updates, and the few that do come out will only add a small amount of content. Like the piles that I mentioned earlier where you could pile up items, that was itself a content update, just that one mechanic, and that was the only update within that year. So it's not dead, but it is very close to it, so this is getting a 2 out of 5. From boars running around in circles and flying into the air, to tiger sharks turning into sand sharks and swimming through the land, the bugs of this game are vast and many. Items being affected negatively by the physics can also be yeeted miles away. I even had the server type of my world change between loads. Sometimes I'd log in and my server would be set to normal. Sometimes it would be set to passive so no creature would attack me. Reloading didn't really work as it was unpredictable on when it wanted to change its mind. Not only that, when I asked about it, apparently the various bugs have been in the game since either launch or the co-op update. Which means they've been in here for a minimum of a year up to 4 to 5 years with the same bugs and no fixes. This game has more bugs than Grounded, and that's saying something. So this is gonna be a 1 out of 5. Normally, I would average my scores together to make an overall score, but I'm going to add my own little input and rate this a 2 out of 5. The few good aspects of this game does not make this a good game. I would say, if you wanted to try it, it wouldn't really hurt to, but I would wait until it's on sale. You'll probably spend around 10 to 15 hours in this game, so use that to determine on if it's worth your money or not. I would not buy this at full price. And while there are things about this game I do like, the game itself made me want to quit and walk around my swamp a few times to relax and calm down after getting frustrated before continuing my playthrough. Anyway, I'm over this review and I'm glad it's over. I'm gonna go play a game that I actually enjoy now. I need to cleanse my palate. And that is the end of my review. If you liked my full review, please subscribe to this channel, as I will be making more in-depth reviews and even TLDR versions of many open-world, sandbox RPG games, including those that no one ever talks about in the deepest, darkest depths of Steam. Some games that even look like the muck at the bottom of my pond. If you have any suggestions for which game to do next, please comment below. Florida Gator Man out!